Awesome. So let's jump right into conditional execution then. Why do we need conditional execution? It helps us check conditions and it will help us change the behavior of our program. Okay. The conditional execution usually starts with an if statement. So the if statement begins and then it's followed by the condition. What condition is it that you want to check? At the end of that statement, you have a column. After you have that column, you then indent. Your next statement gets indented. It gets shifted inside because Python is very, very strict with white spaces. If you're going to shift it by giving a space 4 times, you have to consistently use that. If you're going to use a tab, you have to consistently use that. It makes your code looks readable, easy. If you use 3 tabs and then 2 tabs, it's going to give you an error. If you use 3 spaces and then 4 spaces, it will give you an error. So just be consistent, okay? So when you indent a statement, if that statement is true, that indented statement executes. But if that condition is false, that indented statement is skipped. For instance, you can give instructions. Remember, each statement is an instruction. You can give your kids instructions and say, if it is a weekday, wake up and go to school. If it is a weekend, wake up, don't go to school. So depending on that condition, it is a weekday or it is a weekend. If it is a weekday, that condition is true, the next block of code is executed. Okay. And as I just pointed out to you guys, 0 and none are considered false. Every other number is true. So I'll talk about using the Python interpreter later. Again, the Python interpreter comes with Python. When you install Python, you can go on your command line and write that in there. Okay. When you use the Python interpreter for a conditional statement, when you use that column after the header, okay, it gives you 3 dotted lines to show that you're not done typing your code. You have to get into the body now. But the if statement, you see a lot of statements that look like this. The if statement, the loops that we'll talk about tomorrow, and also the functions that we'll talk about next week. Those are all known as compound statements. We have been using simple statements so far, single line all the time. But now we want to use multi-line statements. Those are compound statements. They usually have a header line. That header line ends with that column. And then the next is indented. The next is known as a block of code. A block of code is just sets of code. So when you indent the next block of code, you have to have at least 1 line of code in there. You could have 10, 20, 100, it's up to you. All of those are seen as 1 block, okay? If you don't want to type anything in there, maybe you're still developing your application and you come back to insert it later, you can use the pass statement, okay? When you use the pass statement, it's just going to skip and continue doing something else. But if you want to look at it visually, when you start going down your execution, this diamond means that's a decision that needs to be taken. In this decision, you check if the variable x is greater than 0. If the variable x is greater than 0, then you print x is positive. Otherwise, you go down this path and print something else on this side and so on. Does that make sense to everyone? Sounds good? Do we want to take a look at an example of what that is like? So I know we did an example. One of the things that I needed you to do in your assignment was to write a code to calculate certain things. We'll look at that later. But let me give you an example of using. Let's escape out of here so I can go back to. Again, I'm going to be fluctuating between Jupyter and Visual Studio Code. In case I want to show something very easy, I'll just use Jupyter. So if I want to go ahead and write a quick conditional statement, right, with an if, to write a conditional statement, let's go ahead and start with the if keyword, okay? As you can see, all the keywords are always bolded or in green. So if a is equal to 5, will that work? I don't think that will work because we are using 1 equality sign. That is going to give us an error. This is an assignment operator. We're saying that 5 should be assigned to A. So if we want to check if A is 5, we should use 2 equal signs. In this case, we are saying A is equal to 5. This would be a condition, okay? The condition that needs to be met, and then the heading should be ended with a column. And if you press enter, you can see the indentation is set out right there for you. So whatever else we type in this space is going to execute if A is equal to 5. Okay, so I can go ahead and maybe just put a print statement that says A is equal, I should use lowercase, equal to 5. Now let's execute that. You see the code gets executed. But if we had another value, let's say 50, and we execute it, nothing happens because this line of code is skipped. It's skipped because this condition is false. The condition is not true. Does that make sense to everyone? Excellent, excellent. So again, that's just the easiest way to look at conditions. You could change that and say if A is equal to B, let's do, oops, why is it not going? B, oops, 2 of them now. A is equal to B. You could also write another line of code. If A is equal to C, let's print A is equal to C. We do that and execute that. What do you think is going to happen in this case? Any ideas? Again, remember that we've already defined A and C initially. We defined A to be 5, B is 6, and C is 5. And now that was done on cell 4. But if we go down to cell number 18, we're going to test those values.
Yeah, that should evaluate to true. Therefore, the print statement should work.
Okay, so print statement, is it going to work for this line or for that line?
For the last line, because I saw A is, what was it? Yeah, I think A and C are the same from
That's
the assignment book. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let me execute that and let's see what we get. So yeah, A is equal to C. And you can see that the second line was skipped because A is not equal to B. But the first line was not skipped because A is equal to C. So you can set up conditions on how you want your code to execute. Later on, when we put all of this into perspective, it's going to make sense to us why we do things this way, okay? So that's just a quick example on how you do it. Now, there are some cases that you might have multiple conditions, right? It's not always going to be easy to just say, okay, if your name is DK, do this. If it's Monday, do that. If you have to check each one of those conditions, it becomes really cumbersome and difficult to deal with. So we'll talk about that next. So that was an easy way to look at conditional executions. So again, if this condition is met, go ahead and execute that. Otherwise, skip it altogether and just go straight to the next line of code. Okay. Now let's check out alternative executions. So alternative executions is usually when you have two possibilities. Okay. The condition determines which of those alternatives to execute. Okay. So it's usually known as the if then else logic. Okay. Each of those alternatives are known as branches, as you can see here. You're pretty much just checking if x can be divided by 2, meaning if you divide x by 2, remember we talked about the modulus operator, if the remainder is 0, then x is even. If the remainder is not 0, then x is odd. At the end of the day, you proceed with the next piece of code you have. So this is how you go about coding that. If x modulus 2 is equal to 0, print that it's even. Otherwise, print that it's odd. You just have two options. Choose this or that. Okay? So because we know that condition must either be true or false, we're always going to execute just one alternative and not both of them. Does that make sense? Any questions? So let's take a look at that. In this case, I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio Code. Let's see if we can write a quick one here. Let me add a new file, and I'll call that 02 underscore if else.py. It takes me straight into the file. I'm going to give assign it a value of 1, and let's make it interesting, 11, and assign B a value of 20. And let's go ahead and write our code. If A can be divided by 2, let's use a column. It takes you to the next line of code. Then we go ahead and print A is even. Otherwise, let's go ahead and do our else. Print A is odd. Enough case. So it's as easy as that. It is usually not so easy to write the code if it's Java or C# or any of those other programming languages. Now we can go ahead and let me clear this. Now our console is cleared. Let me drag that up and execute it. To execute it, all I have to do is press the play button. If I press the play button, it's executing that script, which I've written here, and it tells me 11 is even. That's because I made an error. This is divisible by that. I forgot to make sure that I have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So I need to make sure that there's no remainder. Now that I check that there's no remainder, as you can see before, when it evaluates that, it evaluates to true. So it's going to tell you it's even. Why does it evaluate to true? Because when you divide that, you have a reminder that is not 0. Remember, anything that's not 0 is considered true. Anything that is 0 is considered false. Anything that is none is considered false. In this case, we are comparing this expression to 0. If this is true, we know that it's even. If it is false, we know that it's odd. So if we execute this, now we should have 11 is odd, because we are comparing it accurately. Sounds good? Is everybody familiar with the modulus operator? We talked about it yesterday. Or not yesterday, last class. So again, the main thing here is this condition. We can change the condition and say if A is greater than B, that's another condition. What do you guys think? Is A greater than B?
No.
So we can say A is larger than B. That's going to print that. If it is not, we can say A is smaller than B. If we execute that, it should tell us what the value is. 11 is smaller than 20. Okay. So the condition tells you what exactly should print, what exactly should be skipped. We can go ahead and also maybe we talked about inputs last time. So we can go ahead and get a user input and ask them and say enter a number. We tell them to enter a number. We can then evaluate that number. If the number is greater than that, we can say the number is larger than our number. So if I execute that, it's asking me to enter a number. Let me enter a number of 100. An error because that is a string. In order for me to compare it, I need to convert it to an integer. So these are some of the things I will talk about at the end of the class, how to handle this type error using the traceback. Okay. So now that I've updated it to change it to an integer by casting it with an integer, I should then, let me go ahead and use this and \n to take it to a new line. Execute that, enter a number 200. Oops, wrong place. I should enter it here. Tells me 200 is smaller than 20. I wonder why.
So do we need the modulus operator in that case then?
No, we don't need a modulus operator, but we don't need this equality sign because it's telling you that this greater than this should be equal to 0. So that's the part that I missed. So we definitely don't need that. We just want to compare these two. So let me go ahead and clear this out again. I don't like when there's too much on the screen. So let's clear that out. This is our condition. Our condition is asking us to enter a value. Now let's enter a value of 25. 25 is larger than 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So now this is just when we have two options, but that's not always going to be the case. And sometimes you might have more than two options. What if I ask the person to enter a value and they enter 20? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, the operation will not be valid. Therefore,
so
it's going to be equal, right?
It's going to say it's smaller. Because I'm just going to check the first one. It's going to check is 20 greater than 20? No, 20 is not. So it's just going to lie to you that it is smaller. So you want to make sure that you know how you handle those examples. But let me go back to where we were. Alternatively, we're looking at alternative executions. So that's something that we'll talk about when we come back from our break. But I want to make sure that you understand this clearly. And the next thing we have to do is get on the break. When we come back from our break, we'll talk about chained expressions, nested expressions as well. And in there, we're going to understand what are the other options that we can get. But before we get on break, what questions do you have?